So let's kick things off. So Broadcom's making some waves out there, right? Just to say the least. Making a lot of friends. It's tons of sarcasm there, if you can't tell. But I don't think you can find a forum that there's anything positive about the Broadcom acquisition of VMware. Certainly a lot of changes that I think a lot of us would have expected just based on the history, Broadcom's history of purchasing others like Symantec or CA, really just buy, tear apart, try to squeeze as much money out of it as possible. But as they threw out the changes with perpetual licensing, essentially the killing of ESXi free, it's putting a lot of MSPs, in an uncomfortable position, not wanting to be with an organization that they just don't know what the future is going to be and how they're going to continue to make changes and may tear things apart. So today I wanted to bring this topic up for us to be able to talk briefly about that, because there's not much we can really do. I mean, we could talk all day long and talk about, how all the horrible things that they're going to do. But at the end of the day, what is that going to do for us? I think the primary focus is just saying, what alternatives are out there? Do we need to make a shift? Do we need to make a change? And we have none other than the YouTuber. I don't know. I'm trying to do a great introduction for you. I'm Tom Lawrence,
who happens to be on YouTube. Just
yeah, with what 300,000 followers. What is your total on? Yeah,
like 317,000. I don't know. It's on a little YouTube thing there. That's a little e-ink screen that actually auto updates to tell me how many subs I have.
Nice. 317,000 followers. That is amazing. Congratulations, man.
Thank you.
So that is so cool. So Tom, everybody feel free to jump in with any questions you have, any comments, obviously is normal. But Tom, let's just start out by saying, or asking, what is your take on what is taking place right now? Are you surprised by what Broadcom is doing? What is your overall take right now?
About a year and a half ago, I shared an article. I took the time to read the forward-looking statements. So because they're publicly traded, Broadcom had to put their forward-looking statements together that you can read through their SEC filing, which then, of course, is their strategy. They purchased it at a deficit. They knew there was a losing amount of money for what their intake was, for how much they were spending on employees and things like that. So they had to outline the strategy, like any one of us would do, is justify why you're buying it. And the Broadcom CEO did not mince words. He says, we're going to substantially raise prices. We're going to cut all the stuff we don't need out of it. We're going to lose all the small businesses. But the counter to that immediately was really simple. I think the number was like 90 or 91% of their revenue comes from companies in the Fortune 1000. And he says, they won't move. They're too embedded. So we're going to create a lot of noise. You can ignore the noise, because in the end, we're going to solve and have an $8 billion a year more profitable business when we're done. 8 billion with a B. And so, the guy, he just outlined it. There was no mincing of words here. And I don't know why people thought there was something else going to happen. That's why I was always kind of being slightly sarcastic, but I say always the Broadcom deal is going as expected. And then sometimes I refer back to that article in the Register, because it's all plain English of how basically we're going to drop the bottom people. We're going to cut staff, and we're going to raise prices on people that can't move. And success. It's a simple strategy. It's not like it's really complicated. Now, the long-term effect, of course, is we know everything is built based on community bottom up. VMmug and everything is what helped build the VMware community, giving it away for free, because what you use in a home lab today is when you grow up what you use in business tomorrow, because you build on what you're familiar with. So we already know they've just stopped that pipeline of incoming people. But I don't think VMware is worried about it. You got an older CEO who's going to get a pat on the back and write a book of how he paid $60 billion and made $120 billion. And in 4 years, VMware will still be cranking out money because no one's moving their infrastructure in the next 4 years. The long term looks bad. He'll be exited by the time there's a long term. And so he'll
Right.
fly away in his golden parachute going, hey, look, it's the next guy's problem who's going, wow, no one really likes this product that doesn't get updates and looks like I don't know if you've seen the articles on the Avanti VPN stuff, but it's all built on 20-year-old technology because no one was maintaining the underpinnings of it, which is why it keeps getting in the news for security problems. And if there's no forward looking for VMware, the innovation stops at where it's at. And we're already seeing problems with VMware. How many times VMware has been mentioned in a hack because of their dependencies on Java? There's a lot of technical debt in VMware that it's not that you can't overcome it. That just requires a whole lot of programmers going, hey, let's solve the technical debt. Let's revamp some of the underpinnings of this OS that's been around a while. But if you cut staff, you're not doing that. You're just extracting value until you can ride that train until it's not there anymore.
Right.
That's my opinion.
Yeah, and I mean, I think at the end of the day, when you look at what they're doing, especially when we take a look at stats like 91% of where their revenue comes from, would any of us be doing anything differently? Probably not, right? I mean, they're putting their money, they're putting their emphasis on where their revenue is coming in. If we were all offering some kind of a freeware MSP solution out there and all of a sudden we just said that hey, 91% of our revenue is coming from over here, why are we going to continue to go down this path? So what that ultimately means then is we have to make a decision that do we want to continue with an organization that their focus is on a much different market than most of us. Or do we go after and start leveraging different vendors that see us as a valuable fit, right? Anybody agree, disagree with that, Josh?
Yeah. So we used to always talk about, and maybe still do, so many of us came into this business as techs, but not business people, and that transition is difficult. And I think we're seeing at a much higher level the same thing happening at organizations 1,000 times our size, like Broadcom, Intel, Microsoft, maybe even K, that they're not struggling with this psychologically. They're not saying, yeah, there's no gnashing of teeth or wondering if we should do this. They're just acting, especially if they're publicly traded companies. And this should not be a surprise to us. The money is in these bigger players, and that's what they're going to do. It's interesting to me that this is happening now as premise where a lot of VMware stuff is going away, beginning to. But this will be great for us as a Hyper-V shop, and it will help us to leverage the one or two people we're flirting with that are still VMware shops. Just let them know. Make sure they get. I'm going to find that, Tom, that discussion about where their money, where they're going, and let them know that they're no longer in the sights of these folks. They're not important to them, and this would be a good time to move to the cloud, or if you stay on premise, to move to Hyper-V.
Well, I have a slight opinion on Hyper-V. I covered this in my videos. Microsoft has the last Hyper-V comes with like 2019. They don't even give away the free version anymore. And I love that this is actually on the Microsoft forums. We don't have the resources to offer a free version anymore because Microsoft only is at the $3 trillion market cap mark. Apparently, giving things away to the community is not in their interest, but their interests are aligned going, well, why do we have to give away free VMware's not? I really don't know what the future of Hyper-V looks like. I've never been a big fan of the product, but where Microsoft's going with it is, I would say, a fuzzy roadmap because they want you in Azure where they can get that sweet recurring revenue. That is definitely where the road they're hammering down.
You're absolutely right. No question at all. I'm surprised there is a next version of server coming. Although to be clear, you can run Windows Server 2022 in Hyper-V as a hypervisor. Mm-hmm. You're effectively getting what you're saying is there. That's still there. It's not free. You pay for licensing, right? But the licensing, most of our SMB sites are running 1 or 2 servers. And if they get to 4, we start flirting with the idea of data center. But with 1 or 2 servers, Windows Server is still a great answer. I understand your reservations about Hyper-V. I came from VMware to Hyper-V. But it was the minute they got live working, I decided, okay, now we got that. So that's over a decade ago. I get it. But none of us should be surprised that everybody's moving up stack or however that's described nowadays.
Right. And I guess, the question is there anybody who will not make a change? Is there anybody who will say, hey, I'm not going to look at alternatives. I'm going to continue to move forward with, what's available, yada, yada, yada.
Well, people with deep enough pockets, or the service people with deep enough pockets to continue to pay for the exceptional capabilities of VMware. I can't imagine this is enough to change it. Just like that guy said, they're not going to jump. And if we have, not me, but if somebody here has clientele in that class, then I don't see why you would.
So when you take a look at alternatives overall, I think the conversations, with our clients, most of them probably have no idea that they've got VMware running in their environments. They probably don't have a clue. We're using it in order to, do what we do in a more, efficient manner. I would say that, us going to our clients, having conversations with them about this, they're not going to be engaged, and there's not going to be any level of interest. So when making a change that gives a little bit of an obstacle, a little bit of a challenge in helping them to understand what we're talking about, what we're faced with, and why we need to make any kind of changes. Thoughts in that area?
Well, like you said, I mean, most of them don't know. So if you do have to do an upgrade, you just bundle in the price or whatever, right?
Sure.
Whatever the new
Yeah.
price is going to end up being. I got a couple of larger clients that are on VMware, but they got enough money. They're not going to flinch. Like Tom was saying, if you're kind of entrenched in there, they got you by the short and curly, so you're not going to leave.
Right. So taking a go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, in a lot of times, like you said, the clients aren't. We're dictating the solutions to our clients. It's a more mature business model than letting the clients tell you what they want to use. So,
Right.
And so we on the back end choices, we've doubled down on like XCP-ng as the alternative, and doing the VMware migration tools that they have included into it. It's one of the reasons I'm kind of bullish on that as a product.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. Let's talk about why you are bullish on it. Just a little bit more granular from that perspective.
For me, one of the things I look at is what are obviously I'm a little bit strange because I'm a big open source advocate who also works in the MSP space, but I've been working with Linux, started in, I think 98 or 9, so I first started really as a business, started working in the Linux world.
You're old, Tom.
I'm old. Yeah, I know. But one of the things about being open source and having an open source product run by open source founder, which is where you're at right now. Vates is the company behind XCP-ng and behind Xen Orchestra. People may be familiar with the product's history around Xen Server and Citrix, and they scaled really big, but Citrix proved to be, well, as good of a steward as Broadcom is over products. And around 2017, Citrix made some really poor decisions to destroy the community and changes. The team at Vates kind of seized the moment and respun the Citrix Xen server, the open source portion essentially, and rebuilt it all into a 100% open source product. Now, the nice thing about any of the open source products is even when open source projects are purchased by companies, if the companies become bad stewards, there is the ability for them to move over. The famous OpenOffice, LibreOffice, or more recently, F5 Networks bought NGINX, and there's an argument with the developers, and they're threatening to fork it essentially right now. And that's why I've always kind of had a good confidence in some of the open source to be a better project overall. The team, Oliver Lambert, the head of Vates, they got a pretty big team. They've actually hired quite a few people over the years, built it up. They've even, if people don't know or aren't familiar with just how prolific the use of Xen Server itself is, the core of the hypervisor, that extends through the majority of Amazon. They were actually able to get some kernel developers who worked for Amazon, who Amazon runs about, I think 70% of their workload is still on Xen Server on the back end, just the core. It's not really the same as XCP-ng, but the hypervisor is part of the Linux Foundation. It's well developed, well supported, and pretty extensible. It's actually used a lot in automotive and embedded systems. Back over to XCP-ng, why we like it. It's built on that same technology. It has a long track record and a gold standard of how they handle security, how they handle updates. And the team at Vates has procured some of the top talent from around the world to work for their company and build out a product that works really, really well and scales. Some of our clients, consulting we've done, have as many as 2,000 virtual machines running in these clusters that are just smooth and flawless, auto load balancing, same type of features you'd expect, and are completely available in VMware. And what's amazing is without a license, you can run all of it. You can build all of this infrastructure out. But if you want, what's important to us as the MSP community is the ability to get support. They have support contracts. They have, SLA agreements and all of those things that we may need to, have someone backstop us if we need it. But the nice thing is it's not imperative. We buy support because we want to. We don't have to do it, which also puts the onus on them to provide good support, because you're not going to pay for support that isn't good. And their support is absolutely top notch. They're all their tooling, all their documentation has become substantially better. I actually work with them on building the documentation. So I'm actually saying that I help create documentation that makes it better. So yes, I know I've got bias. Completely call me out on that. but I'm also coming at it from, we've been consulting on it for quite a while now, and we've been helping build the product, and their engagement with the community has been second to none. They understand the community. One of the features they have, because they're integrated backup, system that they have has an automatic, and you're familiar with this with a lot of backup software that does this. Veeam can do this. Like, hey, we want to not just back up, but verify, because no one cares about a backup that works. We want to know about a restore that works. And so they even built the automatic verification to respin a VM on the same or a different cluster to do verifications that their backups are actually viable. They've got all that integrated. And once again, 100% open source, you can have all of that automation built in, or you can get the license for it and do some service delivery automation. One of the reasons I've kind of liked a company that's been that transparent and that working with the community on saying, hey, what are we missing that you as the community would like to have? And the level of engagement they have has been really inspiring over the years and kind of helped them build a better product.
So when you take a look at the costs, for support, how would you compare it to other options that are out there?
It's a little bit more expensive than what VMware was offering. What was that? The license, the basic license, like $600 a year or something along those lines.
Like 550 or 600. Yeah.
Yeah, and theirs was about $1,200 for the same thing. So they were a little bit more expensive, but that's not substantial. There's also they're working on a couple new packages because they are trying to service the MSP space better, and they realize that there may be a better way of doing it with the MSPs because they have better component licensings they can do. So they're rolling out later this year. They've rolled out one, they call it the Vates Stack. So they've actually reduced the price of their licensing to something a little bit more attractive to us. They also have a reseller and partner program they're rolling out that gives us really good incentives. So what we pay is going to be substantially less than what they have marked. They want to do really good margins for us because they want to encourage engagement from the MSP community.
All right. Josh, sorry, were you going to jump in there? No, sorry.
Oh, not specifically about that, just that I guess my underlying question is how many people on this call are actually still building on-premise virtualized delivering systems like that? Is any of us still doing it? I am. I know I'm a dinosaur. Is anybody else?
As am I.
Okay. So
I mean, there are environments where that's not going to go away for a long time.
Yep.
Right.
Well, I agree. And who knows what will happen between now and then. So there is still some of that, but most of us are not. Jay, Eric, and I are doing that, or at least we're willing to say so. Eric is.
Yeah, we have, we do as well. I mean, we obviously are seeing opportunities where we can make shifts to, frankly, in many cases, serverless environments. But yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Others?
We still have a fairly large local server install base, and we are continuing to do so.
Okay.
Yeah, and I have a client that that has some on-prem applications that the vendor does offer a cloud solution, but the pricing was not palatable to the client. So they would like to continue to run on-prem, even with the total cost of ownership of maintaining servers and support.
Yeah. And I mean, you've got organizations like Thomson Reuters who can't find their butt with both hands in the room full of
Right.
mirrors. But we've got one that probably they're going to pull it back. You know, they like the applications, but the hosted situation is untenable. You know, we may actually pull that back to on-prem.
We are still, and we're losing a big player who's a nonprofit, but even once they're gone, our only zero equipment sites, all cloud sites, are nonprofits paying virtually nothing for their licensing, and that makes it a compelling choice. But short of that, I don't have anybody who doesn't have premise equipment.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a Thomson Reuters scenario like that as well, Eric. However, for the most part, things are running fine for them. I mean, it hasn't. I don't think it's been to the extent of what I think your client is experiencing.
We've been working on doing a 365 migration for their mail for 4 months, and we literally this week finally got to. We actually have everybody's username, password, and authentication crap works, so that we can exfiltrate the data. 4 months. Wow. It's been, and it's only 20 users. It's not like some gigantic.
Right.
Yeah, and it's like I can't imagine the pain you'd be in if you had 100 users and oh yes, let me put in a ticket. A dev will call you back to change a freaking password. Really?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So, and if I'm correct, Sean, I'm trying to think back to Sean. You had posted a couple things in one of the latest posts. Can you comment a little bit about some of the directions that you're thinking about going?
Well, we were evaluating Proxmox simply because it's been fairly well promoted within the various forums and groups. So we spun up a Proxmox server here on an old ProLiant that we had, and then ran it through a few different tests, created some VMs, restored a data backup to it, played around with the different things. So far, it seems fairly respectable. We were able to restore a data backup, which was quite positive. And we've built our VMs. We've done crazy things like just yanked the power cord from the server and just to see if it would recover the environment nicely. We've pulled drives out, we've resilvered them. Just a few little minor DR tests just to make sure things are going to work the way we expect them to if anything bad happened. So far, so good. The real gotcha for us is we don't know what we don't know with it. We're Linux guys from way back, so there's no issues there. I mean, we use Debian, we know how to spin things up. We can do basic troubleshooting with it. But what I don't know is if one day the thing blows up because there's a power outage or there's drama or whatever thing happens.
Right.
What do we need to know to fix it? I mean, at this moment, we don't know what we don't know. And I'm going to roll this out to a client potentially, and now something breaks or maybe the performance isn't quite right and I gotta go to these forums and ask for help, and maybe it'll be fine, maybe it won't be fine. This is where we're going to do more testing, and I've got 5 new servers I was going to be rolling out, and they were going to all be VMware, and that's obviously not going to be an option, or at least an affordable option. Some of the clients will go with it because that's what they've had, and this is what we're going to keep doing for them. But in this, we've got a couple of smaller places, and I'm thinking rather than just spinning up VMware, we'll spin up Proxmox, we'll do their server migration onto that, and we'll see what happens, and it'll be our early test with it. I was talking to a client. Sorry, one more thing.
Go ahead.
Is there a support option?
There is a support option. I've heard mixed comments on the support option, so I don't know enough about it to have an informed opinion yet. But I was talking to one of our accounting clients who's looking to setting up a new server. And, I was explaining, well, there's this VMware problem we have, or this, Proxmox thing we could consider doing. And they were very clear on we do not want to be your guinea pig comment, which is absolutely fair. It's like, I get it. If we roll this thing over and it doesn't go well, now you're annoyed. And accountants are particularly challenging as clients in my world.
Yeah. And, Tom did a video just walking through, you talked about Proxmox a little bit in comparison to XCP-ng. Can you give us, I don't think that video was very long, maybe 6 minutes, but can you give us like the 2-minute summary of the 6-minute video?
Proxmox is really popular in the home lab. So you got a lot of people that are promoting it. It's built on Debian, and if you want to watch a fight, try to figure out if it's a Type 1 or Type 2 hypervisor and watch people scream at each other, because it's built on KVM. KVM, it's sitting on top of Debian. Those are two familiar things, but that's where I see sometimes people running into the problems, is because it's relying on all the updates through Debian. And if one update and other components breaks something else, you can run into problems. There was a lot of networking that broke when people went from 7 to 8, because it redid a lot of the network stuff, because it was a big change. That, of course, caused lots of drama, and people who don't know how networking works in Debian, you're going to be at a disadvantage on there. They're a small company out of Austria. I'm a lot fuzzier on how many people work there. They don't have the same level of community engagement. They do have forums. They do have like limited hours based on Austria time for hours, which actually may be an advantage for us in the US, because if we're trying to solve a problem off hours for us, that's daytime hours for them. That may be an advantage, but their SLA agreements are like next business day, I think was the best one I've seen offered based on their site. So the support is a little bit fuzzier, if you will. It seems to be just more community support, but I don't know of it as a bad product at all. I know tons of people that run it in their home lab. They seem to find it stable, but what you don't know problem is we've had people contact us about consulting, and reality is unwinding, because they have the option to use ZFS or Ceph. If you don't know from the command line how to deal with those very well, it does not give you a lot of information other than, well, your cluster's not there. And if you're not sure how to unwind that, you've just like, okay, I guess I got to reload these hypervisors and reconfigure them again. And that's a little bit more troublesome, so to speak, in Proxmox versus the way XCP-ng is designed to literally just destroy the node and reload it. No big deal. The node means nothing. You don't have to do any customization to it. You can bring it into or out of a resource pool. It's kind of like treating the servers like cattle. They don't really matter. You can just bring them in. All the settings just kind of follow with the database, and like, oh, this one's broken. Just eject it from there and reset it back up. So it gives you different tool sets for doing it. Both are good solutions, though. I'm not dogging on Proxmox. I'm a big Debian person myself, so.
So as a MSP who just happens to have a YouTube channel with 317,000 subscribers, what would you recommend for the average MSP that is sitting on, a number of, ESXi instances out there, as far as making a decision, as far as what next step to take? Whether a move should be taken, when that move should be taken, the decision-making process of an alternative, et cetera, et cetera. So go.
So how we came to XCP-ng as an MSP, we had about 30 employees. CNWR is the MSP side of the house, if those of you not familiar with it. Or you may know Jason Slagle. He's the current president of CNWR. But how we came to XCP-ng is, well, one, that same familiarity of use that we had. Okay, I understand how this works. It's with the XO platform, managing it at scale. This looks a lot how vSphere manages VMware. So it's got a similar pattern to the design. They also have, to make it a lot easier, some import tools that will allow us to extract. You take a running VMware server, you stand up an XCP-ng next to it. I can then say, migrate all these VMs over here. And we've been doing that, and it makes it way easier to replace these VMware systems because we can set them up next to them. So that's one reason. Second reason is total cost of ownership on XCP-ng is going to be lower because of their integrated native backup system. And third, if you set this up, I've got a good write-up in a forum, you can build it so your XO interface, the management interface, because it has a one-to-many relationship with the hosts, you can connect it to your client host, and you can have central management for like a dashboard for all of your virtualized infrastructure that you have at each one of your clients, or even in a data center. That is an architecture that is supported by their design.
Very cool. Questions on that from anybody?
Sure. Another survey question. Amongst us here, who has Linux expertise in their staff, in-sourced Linux expertise?
I'm Red Hat certified from way back.
Okay. Because one of the things we're taking on, Tom, is a higher level of the buck stops here. I mean, the reality is the buck stops here for all of us, but we are committing to provide us expertise. Is this something you provide through your organization or organizations? If an MSP wanted to move to a different stack like this, do you provide that?
Yeah, we do a lot of consulting. That's a big piece of what we do. So if you looked up CNWR, one side of the house is MSP, one other side is IT consulting. We have a lot of co-managed that we do. That's one of our niches, is diving deep into co-manage. It's because we're helping internal IT teams, but we equally help a lot of MSPs as well. And kind of back to something you had mentioned too, I don't see anything wrong with a lot of MSPs who just think, hey, I'm just going to slide over to VMware, because exactly what you said. I only have 1 or 2 systems. I don't need to build out a large scalable infrastructure. I don't have 50 VMs at this client. That is a different scenario. So I will mention, because I know there's going to be a lot of the listeners on here. I don't know how many of the audience, but a lot of them are going to be the smaller in terms of what they're managing on-prem, smaller instances. And I don't think that Hyper-V is going to be I'm not, like I said, not a big fan of it myself, but I don't think it's going to be the wrong answer for them. And the right answer ultimately is, what can you support as the MSP? Because I don't want to hand anyone an environment they can't support. That's not tenable.
You said slide over to VMware. I think you meant slide over to
Hyper-V. Yeah, slide over to Hyper-V. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and my point is just that a lot of us support what we can support. And we don't change that until there's a compelling financial reason, like a big customer urging us or coming on with something, or we hire opportunistically, or we just get lucky and bring somebody in with that expertise who can train others, and you can develop your own base. Okay, but thank you. I didn't even know what you did. So I just shilled for you without realizing it. Thank you.
No problem. I didn't come on here to sell, so I came here to educate.
Well, with that being said, I mean, let's, why don't you give us a couple minutes of your history, because obviously some things have changed in the last couple of years, for you, in a very positive way. And, maybe you can just kind of give us, the breakdown of where you started and where you are today.
Oh yeah. So I started my company in 2003. So I've had my business for over 20 years, but I did split the company up and I merged with CNWR in July of 2023. The problem is the YouTube videos take up a lot of time to make, and the projects we were doing, we're bringing in more projects. It's kind of a big circle. That's our inbound lead engine for how we get all these co-managed deals or special projects we work on. If you look at my channel, you see like we just installed 2 petabytes of storage for a client, and I break down like how we do the servers and how we design and architect these things, or when we do large Wi-Fi installs. That being said, Jason and me are good friends. We have a very common way we think about things, especially around cybersecurity. So I kicked off the idea of merging. We merged the companies together. So now I focus on creating content, but I also do solutions design. So I do the consulting on that. And we have a pretty big team that has everything from Cisco, Meraki experience, and a lot of Linux. We have a few devs on the team. So we have a good base of expertise to pull from for doing all these different projects on the CNWR side, and I stay on the solutions design side. So because I don't know, I'm not as, it's like designing's the more fun part to me, is putting these together. Doing the actual work sometimes gets a little bit boring. I'll load some drives and things like that, but I make all the videos about it. And my goal is always to educate people on how we do it. I hold nothing back on there. And some people will watch a video and go, that looks hard. I'd just rather hire you to do it. And I'm like, no problem. There's a form you fill out for that.
Right. Exactly. And, sorry, I just lost what I was going to ask you on that. I think I'm just as old and losing it there. So, when you take a look at some of the comments as far as other solutions, I think I've seen Red Hat out there. I'm trying to think of there's a couple other players out there that I think someone has posted. What are your takes on that?
Yeah, OpenSUSE Harvester is another one that gets thrown out there a lot. There's a few other systems out there, but as far as like, the Red Hat has Overt, but I don't know where that project is right now anymore. I would say the 2 most feature complete ones are going to be Proxmox and XCP-ng. Like those are both good choices. If you get proficient at Proxmox, I've known some people that are really good at it. I have several friends that run it at scale and have no problems with it, but they're really good engineers and they know very well how to put together, because their background is dedicated Linux and they're sysadmins, not business owners. So this is what their focus is. So it's not that I don't think you can't set it up properly. And if you follow their guidelines, because most of the time when I see something not working properly, especially with their hyper converged in Proxmox, I've I've done training on Ceph, and if you don't know how Ceph works or don't understand how to configure it properly, all the work in Ceph is in planning, not in implementing. If you plan it all right and give it what it needs to work, it'll run wonderful. What we often see is people go, hey, look, I can have 1 gig links between these hyper-converged infrastructure, and it's one-click deploy with Ceph. Oh, it doesn't have enough IOPS once we actually loaded the customer's application on there, and then they're stuck. And I'm like, well, there's not a solution to your problem. You have the wrong hardware running it. And they're like, but we already sold it to the client. I'm like, well, I'm sorry, I don't have a solution. You're going to have to separate your storage from your compute or it will not work. You don't have enough power to do the calculations on Ceph at the same time that the application's running. But once again, it's about understanding and have proficiency at these. But there's, of the solutions out there, XCP-ng and Proxmox are the two that I absolutely think once you get good at them, they're both good solutions.
Norma's asking about VirtualBox.
Oh, I mean, the VirtualBox is cool. I don't know that it's a client solution, really. I mean, it's
depends on the price you can afford.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, now that VMware's made their changes, has anybody here messed with Nutanix? Because they're no longer priced out of the market if you consider VMware to be in our market. And Nutanix is more than just a hypervising platform, obviously, or maybe not obviously, but I looked at it because I had kind of built my own Nutanix solution 12 years ago without even knowing I had done that. And then I learned about them. I'd like to know your input on that, Tom.
So I posted this on Twitter yesterday, and because this is a common one, I think we have it on LinkedIn as well. But one of the problems I have with Nutanix is currently, if you look at what their current market cap is, and you look at the cash on hand of Broadcom could just pull some money out of their back pocket and buy them. And people said that's not tenable. And I shared several Wall Street Journal articles going, they're looking for a buyer. The VC wants to sell that invested in them. So I'm like, they're big. You look at them and you're like, yeah, they're a big company. And you're like, Broadcom's a bigger fish. And if they think that too many of their customers are going over here, they're going, well, just buy that thing. I think they're at risk.
Well, now we have to become analysts, and I mean financial analysts, as well as everything else we do. One, to avoid partnering with companies that will be bought by Kaseya next week.
Yeah.
Two, bigger.
It's hard.
Yeah. I mean, I know what you're saying, and I don't argue that, but I was actually asking a techie question.
Now, I do know people that run Nutanix, and the good and bad, there's some love-hate that goes with it. Nutanix is a very hands-off system. And so if you're technical and want to change something, everything requires a call to Nutanix because they won't let you change it. This is how they give you a good customer experience. You can't touch the knobs because you don't know what you're doing. Only we know what we're doing, but they give you good support at the cost of expensive licensing. So when I've talked to techs, the sysadmins don't love it because I go, everything I have to open a ticket for, I want to tune a knob. They're like, yeah, you got to open a ticket and we'll make the change for you. We remote into your system and do it. But people say, hey, I set it and it just works and works rather well. Seems to be that people seem to say it works well, but they can't tune anything. Comes at that high cost. And maybe that's what some MSPs are looking for, set it and forget it solution, and that may work for them.
Sounds a little like the old Apple server. Okay.
Yeah.
So, all right. I don't know that we'll be playing in that pond, but I did have a potential client years ago that was a Nutanix site, and I learned about it for that reason. Since then, he's now off on his own running an MSP, that IT guy. But
yeah, Nutanix is running on KVM. They're basically a closed source version of Proxmox. They're using a lot of the same tools. I can't remember if they use Linbit or Ceph on the back end for their hyper-converged. It's been a while since I looked at how the back end works, but I do know that it's based on KVM.
All right. Thank you very much.
So you mentioned, Tom, you had mentioned something about kind of a threshold of, somebody that's got, 50 VMs versus somebody, maybe a client that's got just a couple. Can you expand on that a little bit as far as what your recommendations would be for next step, depending on, the size of the clients that many of us might have? I
mean, like I said, if you're running just a couple servers on there, the Hyper-V route, and especially if you're familiar with it, is not going to be that bad. Like that's going to be an easy, low-hanging fruit. But if you are an MSP that wants to grow into supporting those clients, I mean, I know some MSPs focus on cloud-only people. I've had a couple of them like that. perfectly fine. It all depends on what market segment you're going after and what market segment you're in. But hey, if you're going to try to pursue some of the bigger fish, there's a lot of work. I mean, we had a company buy 1,000 block hours from us because of all the server infrastructure that they need updated. You know, pretty big manufacturing company. The engagement started small, and they said, let's just pull the trigger. We need this much block hours just to get all the stuff, the heavy lift of removing all the technical debt we have across all of our locations. But you got to be able to have the skills to do that. You know, pick one of the platforms, get really proficient at it, be at the ready to sell it as a solution. You know, if it's reading through the documentation, setting up and building a lab. We're actually building a bigger lab right now since the merger. We have a lab at our one office. Now we have 2 offices, and we're building a big lab. And we're doing it like capture to flag is the goal. There are going to be flags that the staff get for setting up hyperconverged infrastructure, whatever those things are. We're going to set the goals, and they can play in the lab. Hey, load it. Here's all the stuff laying around. You build it out and you capture it to train it. We do a lot of internal staff training on it, and I think a lot of MSPs, it would be a good thing for them to do is start playing with this. And when there's no licenses involved with both Proxmox and XCP-ng, I heard someone mention they grabbed a ProLiant and started loading it. That is the absolute best way to learn it, and start yanking them drives out, because see what happens.
Yeah. And, you know, I guess the other thing too is just, you know, I think, you know, you're putting in that gamification, you know, methodology there, but are you also incentivizing maybe even from a compensation perspective for those to drive into that?
Oh yeah, yeah. We absolutely have programs around that as well to incentivize all the techs to do it. Remember, our management meeting this morning was talking about we send them to events and everything else. We're trying to figure out how many techs we're sending to MSP GeekCon, and how many are going to. I know Jason's going. I'm skipping going to Write a Boom, but yeah, we send them to the events, and what we're actually working on now is making them write a report. Like, you got to do a report of everything you learned at the event, because that was what we realized we're kind of missing from sending them to the events last time. We want to make sure they are focused on learning something, and they have to tell us and present at a lunch and learn. What did you learn while you were there? I spent some money flying you out to Vegas. What'd you bring back?
Yeah. You're not looking to see how much money they saved at the lobby bar, you know, by Rob Ray buying drinks, right? Yeah.
I knew one guy that made him give all the swag they got to the company. It wouldn't let him keep the swag.
Oh, there you go. There you go. So you guys, you know, we've got about 13 minutes left here. You know, what questions do you have? And we have a great opportunity here with Tom, Mr. 317,000 subscribers on YouTube.
Dan, you're not jealous or anything, are you?
I'm just going to keep hitting that. Yeah, exactly.
It's just weird. I will be honest, it is just strange to me. So
it's, you know, it's awesome. I mean, you should be proud of that, man. It's
been fun. I like doing speaking events and things like that. So I still go to these events and speak at them. I speak at ConnectWise events, the last few of them, and it's been a lot of fun.
So,
maybe we go ahead, Norm.
So Tom's environment is totally open source?
No, not 100% of it. But anywhere I can use it, we're using it, from storage servers to pfSense firewalls. We use a lot of TrueNAS storage servers. We do pfSense on a lot of the firewalls. But I mentioned we're a really big Meraki reseller. So there are times when, hey, that's the solution that fits for the client. Ultimately, that's always our goal, is what is the best fit for the client? What is going to be the most manageable, tenable solution? So no, we're not 100% everything open source. That's a dream of mine, but I also have to live in the real world.
Right.
You just said you're a big, what you just said was remarkable to me. You're a big Meraki reseller. All this discussion of security and functionality and capability. And then I feel like you just said, and I eat lunch at Walmart.
It comes down to the Meraki Wi-Fi. I should say we're a Meraki Wi-Fi reseller. That would be
okay. Sorry. I withdraw my commentary.
Yeah,
there we go.
Josh, you missed the earlier conversation. It wasn't Walmart. It was the meatballs at IKEA.
Oh,
right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So hey, why don't let's shift gears a little bit to you know, StorageCraft, Arcserve news. You have any takes on that, Tom?
I don't use either of those.
Are you trying to give me PTSD?
You
So
know about
Eric, you want to talk about that a little bit?
No, not really. Not really. I mean, we do still have one client that runs backup exec.
Oh,
Come
nice.
on, really?
Wow.
Wow.
still a good choice, but that's
on
Broadcom.
tapes, I assume.
Huh? On tapes, yeah. Yep.
Nice. And you let
Yeah,
them
we-
take these tapes home and then they, put it underneath their coffee table to keep it from wobbling. That's their
We're-
offsite.
We're bidding an
no.
LTO
You leave it in
project,
your-
so
you leave it
tapes
in
aren't
your
dead
car.
yet.
Tape is definitely not dead.
Nope.
It has its place.
We are putting a bid together today at Solutions Design for an LTO system. So it's the same client that we sold 2 petabytes of storage because they want to eventually offload it. And there's not any other solution that's big enough. So we're like, LTO tape it is.
Yep.
LTO up at 6 or 7 now. What's
Something
the big?
like that.
Yeah, I think it's at 9 actually.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah.
LTO 5 was the last tape exposure I had over a decade ago, but I know that there are solutions that tape is really the only answer, or even worm. But for the most part, yeah, it's nice to be past that.
Eric's clients use an 8-track.
Nice.
Well, I mean, there's that one.
Yeah.
So,
Dan, tell the here what just happened with Arcserve.
well, to be very frank, I was kind of caught off guard with it. The headline is that they made a sudden exit of cloud services. This is coming from CRN. Storage and data protection software developer Arcserve has suddenly terminated sales of its Arcserve cloud services and Arcserve OneSafe solo offerings in the process of forcing its MSPs to quickly scramble to provide replacements.
How much notice?
I don't. Support for the products is scheduled to end July 31st.
Ooh.
Oh, and that's not as bad as the IBM fiasco with the data center in San Diego, where they're oh yeah, we're shutting this off in 90 days, and there wasn't enough bandwidth to exfiltrate the data if you started that day to get all your data out. It was a few years ago.
Okay.
But
well,
yeah.
So here's the other thing, though, is even though support will end for those products on July 31st, Arcserve indicated on with a memo that came out Friday last week, so a week ago, telling MSPs that Monday, February 12th, which was this past Monday, was the last day for sales of its 2 technologies in the company's web store. So essentially, support will end in on July 31st, but sales are ended of those. But
sucks if you had a quote out.
Yeah, definitely having to make some quick changes there. So let's shift a little bit over to AI. I'd love to get your your 2 cents, Tom, as far as the world of AI and the impacts that it may have on us as MSPs.
I encourage, and we've been encouraging our techs to use it more and more. We're setting up self-hosted internal AI stuff. It's kind of fun.
Mm.
The Olama stuff is so easy. It's like one line install, get it going, and now you have it privately hosted. Because obviously the concern right away is, wait, you tell your techs to use it. Are they putting customer information there? I don't want to worry about that. And so I don't want to worry about them pasting in something that ends up somewhere and I'm part of some problem. So we're doing this internally, and we've been really looking at building some larger servers. We actually, for one of our clients, built one of those super micro AI servers, and we got to play with it for a little while. I did a video on it. They're around $100,000 for these servers. They are absolutely amazing. We were cracking passwords with it because that seemed like fun, but it runs the AI stuff really well. We're gonna probably be able to scale down one that we have dedicated. But honestly, the AI stuff on a low powered system, if you look at some of the models that are more focused on technical ones, some of the Mistral models and Code Llama, and a couple of those. You can get this set up easily in your self-hosted environment. You can slap a web interface on top of it and have your text chat away with it to kind of help. Hey, how do I write a PowerShell script to do this? And it'll just kick out a nice PowerShell script, and where you can put in some of your API keys. Like, here's the API key, write a PowerShell script that will auto deploy or auto remove this at scale. And it's been helping the level 1 techs kind of get a better grasp on things. And hey, the level 2 techs are available if these guys can't figure it out, but it's shocking how good it does those basic tasks.
Well, you know, I've always been a firm believer that, you know, when somebody comes to me with a challenge, you know, in the old days, sound really old here, but, you know, I mean, obviously the big thing is if you haven't Googled it, what the hell are you doing coming to me for? Now it's, if you haven't, you know, leveraged something like Gemini or ChatGPT or done some type of, you know, research on an AI, what the hell are you coming to me for? Because there are too many, you know, there's way too many resources out there that need to be taken advantage of. And if you aren't, you're flunking the IQ test, essentially.
Yeah. And for some juxtaposition, and because I know there's at least a few people I've seen that are of my age, and so they've been in this tech world a while. Do you remember the articles? And these are long forgotten, but you can find them. The when Google came out, it was the end of us. It was the end of our jobs.
Right.
People were just going to be able to find how to fix a printer themselves, so they won't need us technical people, because if you type this into Google, it would land on a page. It was the end of all IT needs, and so turns out clients will Google things.
I thought when setup programs, I was no longer going to be needed when setup programs came out, because back then it used to be copy ******. She claimed you had to manually install a freaking program.
Right. Well, there's an article that I just read, shocker, but Google advises you to be careful about what you say in its new AI model, Gemini, because it's saying that you know, your conversations with Gemini are not private. I just personally started using Gemini this past week. I've been using ChatGPT for quite some time, and I think it is a very valuable tool. But Gemini, you know, I'm not seeing like anything that's, you know, to write home about. That's a significant change, you know, or significant difference between the two. But other things this particular article indicates is that, you know, ChatGPT is getting a memory. Burglars have found a way to easily jam cloud-based alarm systems, just a number of things that are out there. But you know, as the article continues, this isn't Vegas. What happens in AI doesn't stay in AI.
This
so
is
no
true.
Noticeable differences you found, Dan, between the two?
I have yet to see anything, you know, and again, I've only started using it this week. I do have the paid version as well for Gemini, but you know, I mean, I think I will say one thing that is unique about it is it will, and actually this is probably fairly significant in as I think through a little bit more, is as it gives you its answer, it will break it down a little bit as far as saying this is why, and it will tell you, you know, like if you're putting something together and let's say maybe it's some kind of a response to someone. As I threw different examples in there, it's going to tell you, okay, this is the tone that we're using. This is why this is the type of tone that we're doing. So it's giving you a little background as far as about its response versus just giving you its response. So I do find that kind of unique. I think the thing that, you know, we have talked about that, you know, we need to continue to talk about is the use of AI within our client sites. You know, we have a responsibility to our clients to help protect them. And, you know, this is definitely something that, you know, we need to continue to educate about the challenges. You know, I think most acceptable use policies, you know, cover things in more of a general fashion, but does it, you know, do those policies, you know, drill deep enough to address, you know, advances in technology such as AI?
It's going to be an interesting challenge because as some of these tools come out that our clients use, I've actually steered a lot of clients to things like Canva. It's got AI in it now, but it's such an easy tool for them to use. Seems to be, at least from our clients, it seems to be kind of a slow adoption. We're not seeing as much. You see all the hype at the corporate side, but I haven't seen what lands in the client's lap outside of what Microsoft is doing with some of their things, but I haven't really seen a ton of client usage of it just yet, with the exception of some of our engineering and high tech clients. There's a couple exceptions out there, but most of the general MSP clients we have not as much.
Yeah, I think it would be interesting to monitor, hits to, ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever, just to be able to see what kind of activity there is out there in our client environments.
We use, I don't know what tools you guys use. I use Saslio. Saslio will actually monitor. It's not just your monitoring what web they go to, but it actually monitors a lot of details about the sites they go to. Now you got me interested to log into Saslio and look at a report for how much my clients are looking at that. That would be very interesting.
Yeah, I think it would be extremely interesting, and that may spark more advanced conversations with our clients to help them to understand, what those risks are. Because I think most people are going to those and not thinking about the ramifications. They're just thinking about, hey, I'm just going to copy this in, I'm going to paste it and see what it says. I mean, I've seen plenty of scenarios where I've heard people are taking sales data, their company's sales data, putting it in there and, having it pull something up. And, how is that going to tie back to that organization? I mean, are they including information that might be, be able to tie that to that organization or not? Right. That's the scary part.
Yeah. I gave a talk a couple months ago at a small business event, and I'm doing another one. I think it's going to be in June or July that we're planning. This is, just stuff we work with local chambers of commerce, public speaking events we do, and it brings in small businesses to us, and we stand up there and talk about it. It's actually a good, if you're looking for a talk that people are interested in and will show up for. It was a packed house the last one I did. I got 30 businesses show up to the talk, which is pretty good for being just a small chamber of commerce event. People are definitely interested. They just want to know, and if you can, the demonstration I put together was using DALL-E. They thought it was a magic trick. I said, I need everyone, I need someone. I said, someone give me an animal, someone give me a piece of clothing. And I went through and all this, and then I typed it all in and it generated the images. It ended up being a cow dancing on the moon in a tutu. And, but they're like, no way, you didn't just make that. It kind of was cool because you can show them things like that, get them excited. But it was a good talk, and I think it's a good way to, if you're looking to engage with the small business community and looking for customers. Good marketing.
That was an AI talk.
Yeah, because no one wants to talk about computer security, but if I said, hey, how AI can help small businesses, and I made a list of popular tools out there that can help them with things, 30 people end up signing. That was the max they could fit in the room. Was only 30, and they're like, wow. Like, they filled the room. This is great. I've got an audience in front of me now.
Yeah, and naturally it will tie over to your organization and what you do. And it definitely a great attention grabbing type of topic. And I think most organizations, like a chamber or any similar type of group, would be all over your offer.
They don't have enough people talking about that. I laugh because we're part of the board of the Chamber of Commerce, but they're like, everyone is always coming to the board wanting to do presentations on like finance and retirement funds. They're like, no one shows up for these people really want to do a talk, and like, no one wants to sit through half an hour of the best way to set up your 401k. I'm sorry. Right. I mean, I want my 401k to do well, but I'm not sitting in some room for a half hour listening about it.
Yeah, and I think all too often, many of those that do go to a chamber and offer an opportunity to speak, they're typically more self-centered and more really about what they do, and it just cannot be that way. It needs to be just completely free education, focus on that. In the end, some way, somehow, you will benefit from it. So
absolutely.
All right, everybody, we are at the top of the hour. Tom, as always, thank you so much for your knowledge.
Anytime.
Great, appreciate you being here today. And everybody else, anybody have any parting words as we head out?
So Tom, by any chance, did you do a video on that 100K super micro server? Because my partner was talking to one of our clients about it just about a month ago.
Yep.
Oh,
I did. Oh yeah, I got a whole video breaking it down. We were able to crack, I forgot how many we ran through the one of the rainbow tables in like I don't know, less than 60 seconds. We were using Hashcat, and well, that's one of the things we highlight in a video, is just how fast we could crack passwords with it. We thought that was the easiest and dumbest thing we could do with it to demonstrate. I mean, the thing pulls 4,000 watts while it's doing it, so it's kind of yeah. And we know the wattage because our lab, it turns out, we had to plug in. It's got 4 power supplies, so 2 power supplies on one side of the lab and 2 power supplies on the other side of the lab. And that's not how we did it at first. And we definitely made the lab a dark room.
Wow.
Nice. Hey,
so it
Tom,
turns out you don't actually read all the documentation, like how much current that bad boy's going to draw.
No, I certainly didn't read it, and Jason didn't read it either. So
Probably save on the oil bill heating the joint.
yeah, I seen that you posted Sora. If you didn't see, Sora came out for OpenAI. It is their new generative video, and man, they make some cute, realistic looking puppies. I'm going to tell you, if you haven't looked at that, check out Sora. That just got dropped last night. It's really cool.
It's insane.
Tom, it looks like we do have your YouTube channel. Anthony, thank you for posting that. And if there's any other contact information you want to share, if you could just throw it in the chat.
Everything centers at launchsystems.com. So that's where you'll find. From there, it spiders out to, I have free forums that I run. I just upgraded them because I'm getting about 70,000 unique people a week hitting my forums. Or if you start searching for problems in XCP-ng, you'll land in my forums by the fact that we've done so much support in there for free. So
that's awesome.
But all things I do are centered around launchsystems.com.
Very cool. All right. Josh,
systems.com.
Yeah, launchsystems.com.
Okay.
All right. All right, everybody. Have a great weekend. As always, recharge, spend time with family, because work will be back here on Monday. And peace out, everyone. Take care.
Take care.
Right. Thanks.
All right. Hey, Josh, I got to make one call and then I'll call you.
Sure. Thanks.
Okay.
Bye. Bye-bye.